good.
Okay.
Great. Thanks.
Okay. Well, I think we're live. There we go. I got the best.
I don't know.
Streaming live. Ah, how are you, my man?
I'm great. It's great to be with you. It's
Yeah.
great to connect with the Open Center. It's one of the great loves of my life.
When is the last time we saw each other?
Wow. I don't know. It was sometime at the Open Center.
The
You
immersive
know.
experience of 2019.
Yeah. It's hard to believe. It seems so long ago, right? That we saw people live.
Wow. I guess that last open house was, that must have been like September, October.
Yeah, that was probably the last time. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, well, so I'll set the stage here for those who know probably more me than you. My name is Ross Geller, and I'm the CEO of the Open Center. And I'm just so excited to be talking to Thomas because he had my job before me. We're like brothers.
Yeah, totally.
And it's just so cool every time I get to see you and we get to reminisce because when you ran the Open Center, I was a student at the Open Center. You know? And now I'm running it and you're a teacher. You may be still a student, I don't even know. But
I love being a student of the Open Center, totally, yes.
so
I've been a student of the Open Center probably since, I think, '89. I was thinking about it, so it's been like...
You remember the first class you took?
Yep, it was with Jean Klein, amazing teacher, a Swiss teacher who taught about his form of like Advaita, unity consciousness.
Okay.
He's long passed, but it was wonderful, yeah. The third floor on Spring Street, yeah.
Feels like a relevant topic.
And I remember coming to I lived in the Berkshires at the time at Kripalu.
Yeah.
I remember walking into the room and seeing the setting. I thought, wow, if I ever lived in New York City, maybe I'd work here. Which is kind of predictive, I guess. I never dreamed of it though.
I forget what you did at Kripalu.
Well, I did a lot of things at Kripalu. I was there for 19 years. I was one of the kind of the early founding members when it was a ashram monastery in Pennsylvania. Right. Before a lot of programs were offered, maybe a retreat once in a while. And in those days, it was a monastery. We got up at 4 a.m. and we did yoga practices and meditation and chanting and all that stuff. And many of us in the early days had to go to work because, the ashram needed to support. And eventually, as it turned into a health center and a holistic center, then we all started to build that business and that face to the world. But in the beginning, it was just an ashram. Yeah.
Right.
So, and
in the 50s, right?
What did you say?
Did it start in the 50s?
Oh, God, no.
No, as the ashram, though. In the ashram?
No, it didn't start until 1972 as kind of a retreat for just for one or two people. And then as a few years, it blossomed into a full-grown ashram with lots of residents. And then eventually we bought in 81, 82, 83, actually, we bought the property in the Berkshires, the big property.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't implying you were that old.
No. Hey, I don't care.
So you were there. You were there for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And you took a class at the Open Center in '89, and you thought, "Wow, I could be here." How long?
It was just a little passing thought, nothing serious, because I couldn't imagine myself having lived in an ashram in this idyllic environment, living in New York City. But I did feel some quickening, that later, blossomed into.
Had you ever lived in the city before?
No, oh God, no. I never lived in any city. So of any kind, I grew up in a small town in northern New York.
Oh yeah, which town?
Watertown.
Okay.
It's like close to the Thousand Islands.
Okay.
So
You've always sort of been out in very serene areas, not a lot of.
Yeah, definitely not the city, but when it was time, it was time. Like when I was ready to go after my 19 years, uh, I just, New York is where I went. It just seemed like the next choice.
Did you come to New York just for the Open Center?
Oh God, no, no, I didn't come for the Open Center. I came because I wanted to live in a city. I felt drawn to. I had some friends in New York City. Um, so, and I did want to, I felt drawn to live in New York City more than anything. And then I I worked with Deepak Chopra for a while. My title was Director of Special Projects, so media projects. His publisher was in the city. And
I love that title, by the way. That
yeah,
title always great at places. That means you get to do whatever the fuck you want. It's like
yeah, it's kind of a catch-all.
I'm gonna be ahead of doing cool shit. That's what that title is.
Yeah, I was actually replacing his daughter, Malika, who
Okay.
was the director of special projects. And
Yeah.
she truly did, but it was her dad, and so she was getting married, so I replaced her. And that was a fun job for a while. And then they moved everything out west, and I stayed in the city. And then I worked for Tommy Boy, which was a hip hop label at the time, and but they had a line of kind of holistic musical stuff for spirit and healing. It was the byline. So I worked for them doing marketing, which is really fun. Actually, I learned a lot just about marketing. And Queen Latifah was walking around, and
I was just
Julio, and yeah,
what was an artist or two that you really
that I really the artists that you mean? See, we dealt with people like Deepak Chopra, Thomas Moore, who wrote Care of the Soul. The imprint label I was working with, which is Upaya. As far as the hip hop artists, I really like Prince Paul.
Yeah.
I've lost track of them, but I liked what they were doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Who did you meet that you thought was like a really way nicer person?
Oh, you mean like a famous person?
Yeah, like an artist in there. You're like, wow, dude, this artist was just so.
I'm trying to think if I who I met because I was pretty shy at that point. I was still pretty green to the city. I remember meeting Bonnie Raitt in an elevator,
Yeah.
and she was really because she liked Deepak and stuff like that. And it was just there was an event where she was there, and I had a CD at the time, like a kind of relaxation melodies, and she said she heard it somewhere, which I don't know if that's true, but I was very complimented by that.
You didn't know if she was just like bullshitting you? Like, oh yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny. Yeah, who knows what circles she ran?
I can't imagine you being shy. You're so warm. You're so engaging. I've always, the first moment you and I.
You can't imagine me being what? Did you say?
I can't imagine you being shy.
Oh, well, yeah, but you have to remember, I'd lived in an ashram. I hadn't lived in a city. I'd been around a few celebrities.
Right.
Like Woody Harrelson used to go to Kripalu, and Isabella Rossellini, and there's a few people like that, Roberta Flack, but I didn't interact with them much,
Right.
Again, I was a little shy, so didn't want to bother them, let them have their Kripalu experience, yeah. So when I moved to the city, then eventually, especially when I worked in the Hamptons a few years later, I met lots and lots of
Right.
people, so it became more natural, yeah.
So after Tommy Boy, did you go from Tommy Boy right to the Open Center?
Nope. I went from Tommy Boy. Or Upaya was a label. I did kind of my own. I taught a lot of yoga classes and things like that. I just wanted a chance to experience the city on my own for a while. I think it was less than a year, and then I took a job as director of the Ross Center. There you go, out in East Hampton. It was it's still there. It's a very progressive school.
I'm gonna have to follow you out there since I just
yeah.
footsteps, everything you do.
Well, it was founded by Stephen Ross, who merged Time and Warner, which is an interesting connection because Tommy Boy was a Time Warner company at the time, and then his wife Courtney, who had this very amazing vision for education for children, K through 12, and she had a very holistic view. She, for example, phys ed was called wellness, and they did Tai Chi and yoga and things like that. So she wanted me to kind of create this center for the community, similar to the Open Center a lot. Actually, some Sandy and Adele helped me in the beginning to make great contacts with cool people out in the Hamptons. So, and there, of course, events, there's lots, so many celebrities, one meets when you're out there, yeah.
So then you came to the Open Center.
And well, I started teaching at the Open Center in '98. I remember that really clearly through Sandy Levine.
Were you teaching meditation or were you teaching chakras then?
I didn't teach chakras then. I was teaching meditation.
Yep.
Generally, I taught self-inquiry meditation, which is a form of meditation where you inquire into an open space and you see what's revealed, and it gradually you expand beyond boundaries and such. It's rooted in the Advaita tradition. So that was a very popular class I taught for years. And so Sandy Levine, who passed a couple years ago, was one of the founding forces. She had been to Kripalu, experienced me teaching, so she kind of plucked me, once she found I was in the city, to start to teach at the Open Center. So that's how I got started with the Open Center, yeah, as a teacher. Yep.
By Sandy, which,
Yeah.
by the way, Ralph emailed me. I think there's a moon ceremony that I gotta check this out.
I think it's on Saturday, yeah.
Okay, Solstice Memorial for Sandy. It's going to be, I can announce it on here.
Yeah.
This Saturday at 5:30. Let's see.
Yeah,
This
it's fantastic.
Yes. I would imagine we'll probably be doing some post on social or email about that, so everybody get the details, but look out for it 5:30 this Saturday. So, very cool. And then you got to the Open Center, and so
So I was teaching at the Open Center in '98. So I started teaching, and then I moved to the Hamptons. Didn't teach at the Open Center for a couple of years. Then I returned in like 2002 after 9/11. Everything changed, and then I started teaching at the Open Center again. Yeah, and I have been ever since. I've always taught. I found that being a teacher at the Open Center was really valuable for me because I was always in touch with the students and the student experience, and I wouldn't let anybody announce that I was my role at the Open Center. I just wanted them to see me as a teacher, and so they experienced that. So I loved that, and I got to hear the other classes they were taking and what they were excited about. Yeah, it was awesome.
So I wanna come back to Open Center experience, and I want the conversation to come back to that is you have a class coming up on Thursday. It's a 4th class, Alchemy of the Chakras. Share a little bit. I know there's a lot going on with it. So I'd love to hear what brought you to this practice, this philosophy, and why you think it's so important right now.
Great question. Well, I've been familiar. My dad taught me yoga as a kid, so there were yoga books in the house. So from a very early age, I saw diagrams of chakras. I didn't quite know what they were, but I saw them. I don't think my dad was into chakras per se. He was into the physical stuff, but I definitely was exposed early. And then in my teens, I began to study yoga, Eastern philosophy, and things like that. Moved to Kripalu when I was 18, so I was like raring to go. And so chakras are a part of the Kundalini path, the yogic path, and tantric path. So they're just almost an important alphabet system of archetypes that are so important in the mapping out the evolution of a human being. So they're just part of who I am. They were part of certainly the Kripalu lifestyle. They were a dialogue, like, well, my 5th chakra is longing to express. People would talk like that. It was, it's its own little culture, right? Now a lot of people talk like that, actually. And then, but very specifically, why I was drawn to teach the chakras the way that I do was because I saw that when people did a lot of meditation techniques, they would focus up here. They'd focus on, especially here, which is where you witness. They might be practicing kind of a mindful practice, but they would be practicing it looking from here maybe the sensations in the body or the thoughts in the mind. And I noticed that there was a problem in the spiritual communities where people would prematurely transcend. So they would go off into a spiritual experience when they still hadn't really done a lot of work in their sexual center or their power center, or they had lots of amazing fifth chakra ideas, right? The center of expression. But they couldn't begin and complete anything. They didn't have the power, the energy to see things through. Or they were in this kind of, they would go off into a genuinely kind of blissful place, but they might not be facing their sexual issues or their sexual longings or issues, from their past around sexuality. So I began to teach the chakras because it represents the full spectrum of human experience, not just we normally think of as spiritual. It represents our desire to connect with the earth and be grounded and really our eliminating function at the very basic level. Second chakra represents our need to not just have a sensuality or sexuality, but all the five senses exploration. We need that to feed ourselves. We need to see beauty. We need to experience the world and touch the world. And that gives us a juiciness. It's the water element, right? Second chakra is water element. It's also where we pee, where we release fluids in orgasm and such. It's related to the water element, but it has to do with the juiciness of life. People were skipping over that. And then third chakra, lots of people saying, I'm just focused on loving and kindness, which is a heart chakra expression, but they didn't have the fire to make anything happen or to make an impression in the world or to begin a project that was important to them and see it through. And if you're in this world expressing your dharma, your calling in life, you got to have the energy, that battery of energy to begin it and see it through in the world. So I was noticing, especially with the first three chakras, people were tending to do spiritual practices that caused them to prematurely transcend. And I thought, I want to do the chakra practice in a way that people are in touch with their full spectrum, their full spectrum of instincts, impulses, longings, and such. And then, however, let them be led by the higher centers. So if I have a sexual impulse, let it be led by my heart, the desire to connect, intimacy. Let it be led by my desire for creativity. If I have a desire to be empowered and strong and confident, third chakra, let it be led by more my calling in life, my love center and such. So otherwise, if you're just referring to just the first three chakras, you just look out in the world and see what that does. If you're just in for your own power, your own pleasure, your own security, excluding others, that creates a lot of damage. So.
Man, that's just interesting. I really hadn't thought about shifting, or maybe it's aligning the genesis of your emotions. What you're allowing to drive you to do things. Coming from the higher self, maybe not the more temporal material world.
Yeah.
So, what type of work do you do? Describe a little bit about the type of work that you do.
You mean
that transition?
In a class? You mean what kind of?
Yeah, I mean, I like. How do you get there? How do you get from where you don't want to be to where you do want to be?
Well, there's a lot of stuff about chakras out there. By the way, chakra means wheel. It means because some people saw them or experienced them as spinning wheels of energy. There are a number of different schools of chakras. The most popular one in the West is the seven chakra system, which arises from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika and other sources, and made famous around the turn of the century between the 19th and 20th century by a man named Charles Ledbetter, who was part of the Theosophy movement. And he saw the chakras with his own psychic sight. He saw certain colors and he saw certain correspondences, and then a lot of the West is drawn from his cue, not necessarily from the scriptures, which have different colors and other things. But you really can't kind of go wrong with the chakras, because if you're paying attention to that area, you're going to get value, right? So so a lot of people, when they talk about the chakras or in Saturday Night Live, they'll say, oh, I'm going to balance my chakras, or I'm going to, And I ask people, what does that mean to balance your chakras? And they actually don't really know. They just imagine it would feel good. So if I go to a healer, I lay down on a massage table and they do some work over me, I mean, that's going to feel good. I would like that. But from a yogic perspective, that's going to make you feel better temporarily, and maybe you'll get more relaxed and de-stressed, but there's still work to do with your own karma, unfinished karma. Or I often use the word samskara, which means an impression. It's an emotional experience, a difficult experience that you didn't want to experience, so you closed off on it, and you have the option to store it for later. And they get stored in yoga. You have three bodies. You have the physical, the subtle, and the causal. So you can store them in those bodies. And what happens when you've stored a lot of samskaras? What happens to your life force and your life flow? It's impeded. So the undoing, the yoga, the real work of yoga is to undo those samskaras that are conditioning the chakras. So if I was homeless when I was younger, I might have samskaras or karma in the first chakra around that. I might have security issues. I might be always worried about, can I provide enough for myself and the family? I might even have physical issues too, though I don't get too much into that because I don't want people to like beat themselves up. I have lower back problems because my first chakra has a lot of karma. Things like that. I think that you just have to practice. So the approach I take is more yogic than simply energetic. By yogic, I mean there are sets of tools you can use that will help awaken, experience the stuff you are storing, and that's what's really going to change you. So, for example, if I have real samskaras around security and safety, I really cling to the familiar because I feel safe doing that. I also might hang out in the second chakra, which is pleasure, but it's also compliance and comfort, right? All of us know those are really nice chakras to hang out in. It's kind of like when the cave person got their food, first chakra, and they got back to the cave, they were comfortable and they could light a fire, and then they could like explore their, make whoopee with their spouse or whatever, right? Because they'd taken care of those first chakra and the needs. It's very much like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
I was going to say that, yes.
What's that? Yeah, it's very much like that. Not quite exactly the same, but similar kind of thing. So if you approach the chakras with more of that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you're going to understand how to use the chakras as not simply kind of a energy thing that you do, but as a very functional psychological transformational system. So if I have first chakra issues about security, I might also have fifth chakra longings to write a book or create art or create music. First chakra doesn't really care about your self-expression if it's conditioned. It wants you to be safe. You could eat bonbons all day and be 500 pounds, and as long as you're safe, it's fine. So it actually might obstruct these higher desires, right? Read somebody else's book. Why do you need to write your own book? Like that kind of energy. So we have as long as we're conditioned, we have these conflicts between it. If I've been hurt, rejected in love, then I might have issues, samskaras in my heart chakra, my love center, and I may be avoiding wanting to be in a relationship again because I don't want to suffer. So I might retreat down into what's familiar and comfortable in my first and second chakra, and so forth. It goes on and on. A third chakra is about health and wellness and energy, among other things, confidence. I might have a resolve in the morning, I'm going to go and I'm going to work out. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to strengthen my third chakra, get lots of energy and feel great. And then the morning comes around and which chakras are in charge? Oftentimes it's the first, safety, security, or the pleasure, comfort chakras. So we have these conflicts, and those are, when people say they want to balance, I use the word harmonize because they tend to be in conflict. So to answer your question, now that I've established that, what are the means by which we can reduce this conflict so they're working in harmony with each other, which is what they should be doing? The approach, you could do it with a psychotherapist. You could do it through your own inquiry. There's all sorts of ways to reduce the conflicts between these impulses. They don't have to be aligned with the chakras. If you do use the chakra system, you've got these time-tested methods: breath, mantra, kumbhak, which is ways of holding the breath so the prana goes in. These different methodologies that come from Ashtanga, from Patanjali's, which are all designed to help direct prana or life force, chi, ki, whatever you want to call it, which is not a neutral force, it's a healing force, it's an evolutionary force. If you use these methodologies to direct this prana or this life force, it always creates change. It always creates evolution and transformation. But if it hits a samskara or a karma, there's a price you pay, which is to some degree you have to be willing to re-experience for some period of time the suffering you suppress. The only thing is now you have the wherewithal to do the discipline on a daily basis. You don't have to sit there forever. You can set a timer, practice mantras, practice the breath, practice to some degree postures that help to bring the life force to those chakras. So that's the general principle. So in the class, I teach these series of practices that involve the mantras, that involve attention, that involve breath, that involve kumbhak, which is a way of holding the breath, mudra, which is a way of holding the hands to circulate energy in a certain way, and then some inquiries and explorations. So like conflicts of the chakra, resolving conflicts in the chakra, resolving how to bring forth a wish. My fifth chakra, like I said, might want to write a novel, but how do I bring the other chakras in alignment or harmony with that wish? It's very powerful and very functional. So those are the kinds of things I teach. Yeah.
So I think what was really interesting and helpful for me there is I'm really glad you explained the difference in balancing and organizing.
Mm.
You also hear people that want cleanse. How does that fit in with your lexicon of how you speak about chakras?
Did you say cleanse? Because
Yes.
yeah.
How do you
Well, cleanse.
cleansing is different than balancing or harmonizing?
It is. It's a fantastic point because the main function from a yoga perspective is purification. Why do we do these practices? The 8 practices of Patanjali and whatever else. It's to purify ourselves of. I mean, I want to get too many yogic terms here, but there's kleshas, which are obstacles, which then which predispose us to create karma. So a klesha could be a big one, a rag and dvesh, that's 2, attraction, repulsion. We go for something really delicious or attractive and we repel against things that are uncomfortable. We create a lot of karma by the avoidance and the attachment, even to the degree of addictions and such. So yoga gives methods to attenuate these patterns so that you don't create new karma. The whole Ashtanga path is like that. So once you have karma, once you have these conditionings, the whole point of yoga is to purify ourselves. So when you use the word cleanse, I usually don't use the word cleanse in that way, but I would use the word purify in that sense of, but not purify from a religious sense, like you're a sinner and you have lots of sins and you got to purify yourself of those sins. It's not like that. It's purifying yourself of that which obstructs your life force from loving you to pieces and evolving you. I mean, that's the whole point. It's not a neutral force. So if you can surrender and create space for this life force to move through you, and especially through the chakras, your life, your perceptions will change. The chakras are both receiving, empathic, and broadcasting. I wrote that in that little article I wrote last week for the Open Center. And when you you probably heard, a famous quote of, it was William James, who talked about cleansing the avenues of perception such that the universe is available to you. And some people do that. They first do that through drug experiences and things like that. They have an experience of the avenues of perception being cleansed and they receive all this information. The only thing with drugs is, unless it's in a disciplinary format over time, you can't hold the benefit. But if it's kind of a shamanistic structure of some kind with support, then it can be. But yoga just doesn't use external. It just uses these practices. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, and talk a little bit about what it's like to teach this virtually now that we're completely online.
Well, I have been teaching for the Open Center. Like I taught the the Open Center has a program called the Sound um, and Music. I don't know what the latest title is, but
Yes.
I mean, I helped found it back, like 12 years ago, and it was called the Sound and Music Integrator Program. It's all about becoming a sound practitioner, and it's a survey of different practices in sound. I know that's a big love of yours, Ross.
Yeah.
And
The longest running program of its kind in the city.
yo, fantastic.
And a lot
Yeah,
of and a lot of the really well-known sound healers in the city came through our program.
that's fantastic. That makes me really happy. Yeah, that's good. And so I teach in that program. Of course, when COVID came, all the Open Center programs went online. By the way, which I'm really grateful for, that you transferred everything to online. It makes me really happy because I love the Open Center and what it does, and I just appreciate your leadership and your team's leadership and saying, okay, let's get them out online. Let's do it. It's not going to be easy and it's different, but let's do it. So I mean, that's my appreciation.
Thank you. The team has been freaking awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I know you have
I'm
a
blown
great team. You've got Araceli and Anna San Juan, and you've got Ralph, and
in
I'm
3 days
sure.
we moved on. We moved
What's
our,
that?
in 3 days we had programs online.
Fantastic. It made me so happy, I was contracted to teach at other places, and it was so difficult not to put them down because everyone's got to make their own decision, especially if you're more of a retreat center and such. But I was just really happy that the Open Center is continuing this way, and the Open Center is so well suited for online format, because it's always been a purveyor of amazing ideas that change culture, as opposed to just being experiential. What's that?
Love that tagline. Purveyor of ideas that change culture.
I mean, I'm thinking of Ralph White, for example, around that, because Ralph always felt, I mean, I don't think that's a direct quote, but Ralph understood, Walter had a great vision of the need for a growth center in the middle of Manhattan back in the early 80s and a need to aggregate all these amazing teachers who later became Oprah-fied, they went on Oprah, and then we could no longer afford them once they went on Oprah. Not always, but sometimes. And then Ralph had this amazing vision to have a center where these ideas are from the world cultures, from the time-tested traditions, and the best in research-based new innovations in terms of self-development and transformation. So those two visions coming together makes for such a powerful place that's so important to the city for so many years. And I was honored to be part of that, and still am honored to be part of it. But that you guys are taking it to the next level, turning it into online training. So anyway, I went off on that, but
No, thank
my gratitude speaking. So yeah, thank you so much.
We're excited that when we get back in person, we now have both.
Yes. Yeah. And you can, and also there's all these folks out there who thought, oh no, I could never do it online, have now experienced it. So they know that it's there. But just to get back real quickly, so I've been teaching in a number of Open Center programs that have gone online. So the Meditation Contemplative Studies program, which was a 9-month series, and then the Sound and Music program. So I didn't know how it would be, and there are certain things you can do and can't do, but it's remarkable how much you can do and how much you can convey the experience online, the presence. So I've had a good experience with it. I've actually been really, really surprised by how powerful it can be. Yeah, that's my short answer.
Yeah.
Actually, that was a long answer, but.
Well, no, I mean, you're addressing something we encountered a lot and still encounter of, one type of teacher might say, I don't feel comfortable teaching online. I don't present well online. And then the other may say, my modality doesn't translate well online. And so separate things to solve. We've had some success solving both of them. I think the trickier thing is my modality doesn't translate well online.
Yeah.
But it's allowing people to be creative.
Yeah.
See, like I just dig seeing people's creativity. Okay, I've been teaching the same thing the same way for 30 years, 40 years. Oh, you want me to do something new? Like first, no, no, no. Then I'm like, oh, wait, but I can, because like you got into this to help people to begin with.
Yeah.
Always want to keep transforming yourself so that you can meet people's needs wherever they are, which
Yeah.
is similar to the Open Center. What are we doing right now? We had to transform to meet people's needs where they are, which is in New York in their apartment, and now it's global.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, dude, we're in I don't know how many countries now, but it's
Yeah.
really really cool.
And it's just the beginning, it always was something for many of us wanted was that the Open Center's classes be available global, but now you guys are doing it. So I'm so happy about that. And that point about, and for myself, like I have a Monday night class that's open to all, anybody. And it's fantastic. There's people who took my classes at the Open Center and now live in California. They now live in Amsterdam. They live somewhere else and they can take it, and magnify that little class by all the stuff that you guys are doing that can now reach people who would never get these otherwise.
Yeah.
That's really exciting. Yeah.
So I think what I want to close on, because I think you and I are going to have to talk again. We're going to
Yeah, always.
we're just going to swap Open Center stories because you're such a wealth of information there. Um,
13 years, long time. It was a chunk of my life. Yeah.
but I think what would be interesting for people to hear, because I want to say again, you've got a class on Thursday, starts this Thursday at 6, it's a 4-part class, skips July 4th week on the alchemy of the chakras. What we've got going on right now, let's say the COVID pandemic and the situation around racism, I know, because we've talked, affect the chakras. Can you give people, without going too in depth, how this is affecting our chakras and how you think, and how the class may help people deal with those things?
Oh, I love that. In that article I wrote for the Open Center, it's on the Open Center blog. I addressed this some.
Okay.
And I think that with the chakras, it's important to understand those two functions of the chakras, which is most people focus on the receiving mode. I receive maybe information from the chakras or I feel things in my chakras, and they don't understand the broadcasting mode of the chakras. There's also an important element of yoga. And you and I talked about this a little bit before the call, and I write about it in my article, that I often have students who say that their practice of meditation, not actually, it's not my students because I've taught them other things, but I hear students of meditation say, like, meditation makes me feel a little bit more vulnerable and open and sensitive, which it will do, and that's not such a bad thing. But it has to be balanced. Maybe this is where the balance part comes in. I'm going to invent my own meaning of balance, which is a balance between the the receiving and the broadcasting, the empathic and the broadcasting, because we both receive through our centers. We don't just receive. Many people talk about the third eye, which is where we receive insight from sources beyond the five senses, and we also receive intuition and telepathic information, supposedly. But we also, not so popular or known, is that we broadcast from that. We receive love into our hearts, but we also broadcast love from our hearts. So the receiving is important, but it has to be balanced with the giving forth, because that will fortify us. So I always tell this story of when I first moved to the city, I was so overstimulated and so overwhelmed by everything that 2 in the afternoon I was done. I would just stay in the rest of the day. I couldn't even. I was living near Central Park. I couldn't even walk in the park. 2 o'clock, I was done. Did not pass through the doors. And then I don't know. I fell upon this practice of whoever I saw on the street, I'd pray for them. I'd send them, pray for them, meaning I'd send them good vibes and blessings, and I was broadcasting essentially. And I became so strong through that practice and so grounded that, within a few months, I was going out at 11 at night and going to clubs and enjoying, all that New York has to offer that an ashram doesn't, so to speak. But so there's this sense of yoga, there's the receiving quality, and there's the fortification quality. So, what chakras are going to be affected? Well, of course, the first chakra is going to be affected. That's safety, security on the basic level. If you're some of my friends, they had protesting and riots outside there. They live in Manhattan and in Brooklyn, and they had, that's going to hit your first chakra, and it should hit your first chakra, right? You got to give yourself space for that. Your sense of comfort, second chakra, is going to be affected. You might feel disempowered and helpless, third chakra, right? So, those are the ones that are going to be affected. Maybe your heart's breaking for seeing others suffering, you know, um, which has happened a lot lately, especially with, all that's happened with Black Lives Matter and such. So that's natural for that to be affected, and we should be affected. However, we also need to fortify ourselves, and that's partially what maybe if there's a minute we can do a mantra exercise that will just
Yeah.
give people a little experience of that.
Right.
You want to have your heart not just receiving, but also broadcasting out. And what that does is it does give you strength. And you want to have a strong third chakra, which is your battery. In Chinese, they call it dantian. In Japanese, they call it hara. It's your battery of the body. In Sanskrit, it's called kunda. It's this where we store our energy, and there are practices to build our energy. Once we have a strong solar plexus and it's led by the heart and not by our own me, right? We can do a lot of great stuff in the world, and that strengthens us. So, yeah, that's my short answer.
Let's
Yeah.
do a quick exercise. I think that'd be a good closure.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so the chakras, for those of you who aren't familiar, by the way, I say chakra because that's more of the Sanskrit sound, and most Americans say chakra, which is totally fine, but I just say chakra. So, um, the last time I tried to put chakra into my iPhone, it came out chocolate. So the only way I can get the word chakra is by saying Siri chakra. So that's the way it is. So the next thing to do is always start, if you're sitting in a chair, your feet are flat on the floor. If you're sitting in a more cross-legged lotus, half lotus, then just feel the grounding of the floor touching your legs. So be nice and grounded. And press the base of the spine to the floor and let the crown of the head lengthen towards the ceiling. So you don't want to be rigid, but just a nice long spine. Notice the shoulders, rotate the shoulders a few times forward and a few times back. Just kind of let go of any tension we hold. And then let the shoulders lie in alignment with the shoulder joints, kind of with the ears, not too far forward or back, chin parallel to the floor. Take a nice deep breath in. Hold, hold, hold. Exhale with a big sigh. One more time. And now remember that the chakras have corresponding places in the body, at least the seventh chakra system, and represent certain realities, certain impulses. You're just trying them on through practice. You don't have to believe in anything you've read. You can just practice. Each chakra, one of the ways you awaken it is to be aware of the element of the chakra. So earth element, water, air, fire, and then ether or vibration. And each of these elements has a mantra or a sound associated with it that helps to awaken its potency. So the first chakra, the mantra it's spelled L-A-M, but sounds like L-U-M, lum. L as in Larry, U-M. And so you can just be aware of the first center at the coccyx, ruling the whole lower body right down to the base of the feet, bottom of the feet. And vibrate in the whole lower body from the coccyx down the sound of lum. And I'll lead you through it in a moment. L-U-M, lum. Nice deep breath. Lum, 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 lum. Remembering a core principle of yoga is that wherever your attention or chitta goes, prana or life force also goes there. It's kind of that basic principle of wherever your attention goes, energy goes. Wherever energy goes, prana goes. Evolution, expansion, freedom, purification happen. So as we chant the mantra, it gives us a little potent directing of the prana right to that place. One more time. Lam, 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 lam. Second chakra, water element. The area of the reproductive organs and the bowl of pelvis. The mantra is VUM. V as in Victor, UM. VUM. Nice deep breath and let it vibrate in the whole pelvic area. VUM, 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 VUM. Third chakra, and focus on the area of the navel. This is the energy chakra, the fire element. Fire relates to empowerment, confidence, and action. If you like, you can even rub the hands together and put the hands over the navel if you like to make contact. The mantra is Ram. A rolled R, U-M, Ram. Nice deep breath. Ram, 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 Ram. Letting the hands, if you like, move to the center of the chest. So there's the physical heart, which is on the left side, but the chakra, the air chakra, is in the center. This is the center where we become aware of our part in the ecosystem around us. Lungs, breath, air, the heart pumping oxygen through the blood. The air element is the element of connection, community, ecosystem, love, intimacy. When we realize we are dependent on the air around us and that we breathe in the air of others and then we exhale into that same atmosphere, we realize how interdependent we are. And the emotion that should arise is compassion, love, connection. The mantra is Yum, like Y as in yellow, U-M, Yum. Nice deep breath. Yum, 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 yum. And let the hands relax or remain where they are. And be aware of the throat chakra. Throat chakra corresponds to voice, expression, your calling in life, these sound metaphors. It also is connected to the ears and the tongue as a means of expressing or speaking. The tongue is also related to the second center in terms of tasting. So the mantra for the fifth chakra, which is the center of calling, self-expression, truth-telling, is hum. H as in Harry, U-M. Nice deep breath. Hum, 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 hum. And now you can let the hands be on the lap and touch the tip of the thumb to the tip of the index finger in what is called Gyan Mudra, or the Mudra of knowledge. And let the eyes be focused on that point between and slightly above the eyebrows. This is the center for intuition, higher knowing, telepathy, clairvoyance, and also, above all, receiving guidance from sources beyond memory and the five senses. And the mantra here is Om. We'll do it first in short, and then we'll do a longer Om. Nice deep breath. Om, 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 Om. Once again, nice deep breath, long Om. Om. traditional yoga systems, the seventh chakra doesn't have a mantra because it represents the transcendent, the place where of unity consciousness, where the separate wave merges with the vast ocean of consciousness and energy. So let that be a bit of a vision. Be aware of that kind of longing for connection, moving beyond our separate self. Any idea that we're a skin encased being on a tropic pathway to ultimate decay, which is what science teaches, and tune into ourselves as a wave of consciousness of energy, and even more so, connected to the vast ocean without limit. We'll just do this, a humming sound as you pay attention, direct your prana to the seventh center. Nice deep breath. And let's do one final Om with the hands outward in an attitude, a gesture, an intention of sending blessing out into the world, blessing and healing. So we are in our broadcasting mode now, sending energy out with the sound of Om. Nice deep breath. Bringing the palms together over the heart. Hari Om, Shanti, Shalom, Salam, peace, peace. May there be peace in our hearts, in the hearts of everyone. The eyes. Oh, you're sitting somewhere else. I didn't even see that. I was in my world.
To connect my feet to the earth.
That's fantastic.
Even though I'm on the 5th floor, but like we'll pretend.
Yeah, great space.
Thank you, brother.
Oh, God, my pleasure, my joy. It was
Great.
an honor.
We'll continue the conversation. I look forward to your class on Thursday.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, man. Take
See you
care.
later.
Lots of love to everybody else, too. I can't see your faces, but, thanks a lot. Okay, take care. Bye-bye, man.